The Verdict with World Pools.
Hi there everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. I've picked out 6 interesting races for us to have a look at, and I'm delighted to say that Martin Dwyer joins me this time around. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Looking forward to looking at these races you've put up.
I hope you find them interesting anyway.
I did, I've had a good look at them, and I think we're on similar lines in what we're thinking. Let's see if the stats agree with what I think.
Yeah, we'll build to a crescendo really, won't we? Because we'll have the Coral-Eclipse at the end of the show. But we're going to start at Epsom last week. They had quite an interesting midweek card. Here are all of the winners from it. The times were just okay. The ground was officially described as good to firm in places, perhaps more good than good to firm. And the horse I want to have a look at is Starlight Time, who won the 650 contest. A 2-year-old who took that race in 1:24.29 over 7 furlongs, 3.19 above the Racing Post standard. And we can stack that up as far as the Race IQ Time Index is concerned and have a look at all of the races. But the highlighted one is the second race that we're going to look at, the success of Starlight Time. And just achieved an okay time index, a 5.5. The meeting average was 6. 0 to 10, the scale here for the standard of race run at Epsom over the trips that they were run over. And that's what makes me think that we had no outstanding time, and therefore the ground was perhaps not quite as quick as good to firm. So let's have a look at Starlight Time in a little bit more detail. Trained by Roger Varian, Ray Dawson was on board, and it was a nice debut performance, albeit in a weak race. But I like to say, when I say horses have won weak races, that it's how fast they run that matters, not what they beat. So the winner comes from stall number 6, Eschweiler from 2 and Ibshara from stall 4. Ibshara was favoured in the market and was a little bit keen. The first thing to say about the early pace here was that it was pretty steady. Break speed of 0 to 20 miles an hour for the winner, second best, 2.55 seconds to get up to speed. But they didn't go very fast, and the early fractions were steady. 11.98 second furlong, 11.91, 11.54, rated as slow as against the Race IQ par. And Martin, the winner, just tucked in behind, a little bit keen.
He was keen, wasn't he? I thought watching it, I thought Ray Dawson, he obviously rides this horse at home, he knows him. He was so keen to get in behind and get cover from that wide draw. And once he got that cover, he was just racing on the bridle, but quite kindly, without being too much of a runaway. But I got the feeling this horse was quick out the gates, has got a lot of speed, and he could have easily made the run in if he chose to, but he certainly was at pains to get some cover, being his debut, I suppose. Yeah,
very steady race. Ibshara pulled too hard and weakened out of it, and it turned into a dash. And this horse has done really well, not really handling the camber at this point. They're getting to the 2-pole, just taking a while to wind up to full speed. But boy, it's impressive what this horse goes and does now. Furlong 6, Martin, 10.85 seconds. It's really quickened well and completes the final 2 furlongs in 22.45 with a very fast final furlong as against the Race IQ par of 11.59. That was a bright turn of foot.
It was impressive, wasn't it? For any 2-year-old to win on debut is never easy, especially at a quirky track like Epsom. I thought Ray, it was a sensible decision here, Angus. He decides to switch inside to go with the camber instead of going up the middle where you're on the steepest part of the track. And once he does that, the horse just drops down and really quickens it. I thought it was, for this grade, quite an explosive turn of foot. I think this horse is pretty fast.
Yeah, I do as well. I suppose if you go that way and go down the camber, you can let them roll down if you want, can't you? Whereas if you go the other way, you're fighting them.
Yeah, you don't lose momentum. You keep quickening, and that's what helped the horse to really change gear and quicken as well as he did. Where if you come up the camber, you then end up fighting it, so you're going against the grain. But he's let him drop down, and I agree with you, Angus. It was a really impressive victory on his first start. It was a really good turn of foot. being it was over 7 furlongs, it wouldn't be a shock to me if he came back to 6.
Yeah, no, I think that the speed that he showed here suggests that 6 might be okay. Finishing speed percentage of 106.73. The par at Epsom over 7 furlongs is around about 102, so quicker than par. Allowed to save energy in the early part of the race for that fast finish, but nonetheless, Martin, on debut, to be able to quicken that sharply on the quirky track like Epsom, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it was a good performance, no doubt. Going forward, it'll be interesting to see where they do go with him, because we've seen there, Ray, he dropped him in behind, he got cover and he was able to switch him off. But you know our 2-year-old, after the first start, they can come alive and he'll know what it's all about next time. I'm just wondering whether they will go back to 6 furlongs, because he won't always settle that well, especially if it was a slow pace. He's got lots of entries in the sales races towards the back end of the season, between 6 and 6.5 and 7 furlongs. And because he only cost 14,000, he gets in those races with a nice weight. It wouldn't be surprised if he was competitive in one of those big races. No doubt we'll see him run before then, but it's just whether he goes back to 6 or they maintain 7 furlongs. Yeah,
I think the sustained speed that he showed suggests that 6 furlongs will definitely suit him. We can have a look at that on the Race IQ graph. Now look, you can see that those first 4 furlongs that Starlight Time ran, they're steady enough really. Look, they're rated as slow as against the Race IQ par for those individual furlongs. But then look at the sustained speed right hand side of your screen for Starlight Time, a 10.91, a 10.85, and then a very fast against par 11.59. And what I liked about this, Martin, was that horses that quicken and just go for 100 yards, that's fair enough. But this horse has quickened and sustained the speed.
Well, he maintained it over the last 2 furlongs. Yeah. And the last furlong is racing alone as well, so if he keeps quickening on his own, he's clearly got a lot of ability.
Yeah, Starlight Time then, a horse to keep an eye on when it comes to the sales races later this year. He's got a very sharp turn of foot, and we think maybe 6 furlongs will suit him best. From a nice winning 2-year-old at Epsom, we're going to turn our attentions to juveniles at Sandown Park on Friday. They staged a really good card. We'll have a look at the winners first of all, and of course this was the start of the excellent 2 days at Sandown. Warning sign taking the opening contest, Slow Time. Pacifica Pier is the race that we'll concentrate on in a moment or two. 130.81 over 7 furlongs. That was quite slow, 3.71 above the Racing Post standard. We did have one time that went under, and that was Windlord in the 4:10. That was over a 10 furlong trip, 2.24 under the Racing Post standard. So let's see how that stacks up as far as the Race IQ time index is concerned. All allotted a score. There's Windlord, look, over a mile and a quarter. That's a really good score for 9.4. And ground described officially as good to firm, good in places. The meeting average was 5.5, affected by 2 slowly run affairs though, the first race and the 6th race. We'll look at the second race. A reasonable score of 4.3, just a little bit below what you would expect for 2-year-olds over 7 furlongs at Sandown on decent ground. So let's get into the meat of it with Martin here. I think this is a race that's going to work out pretty well, and we're going to rely on Martin to tell us about tactics in a moment. Pacifica Pier was the winner from 4, Publish was second from 2, and Key of Magic was third from 1. So it was 1-3 for the Charlie Appleby team, the winner ridden by James Doyle. Break speed, the third fastest Pacifica Pier, 3.11 seconds to get into stride, and just tucks in and gets a little bit of a lead. Publish is the other horse we'll really focus on at the finish. The pink cap and Colin Keane down on the inside from that inside draw. Now, Martin, the early pace was pretty steady. The first 4 furlongs, they didn't go mad at all, and you can guess that from seeing how fast these horses finished up the hill. Finishing speed percentage for the winner, 104.79, so that's much better than par because they've saved energy early on.
Yeah, this is typical of a small field at Sandown, over 7 or a mile. These races can be really tactical, and William Buick on the first string for Godolphin, Key of Magic, he's broke well, he's took the lead and he's just slowed it down all the way around the turn into the straight. Williams riding a race from the front, and it just means that horses in behind, especially Colin Keane and the Judmont first colours, they've just got a lot to do to try and extricate themselves from a really difficult position on the rail there. The winner coming up in the white cap in the second colours. I thought it was a smart performance, Angus, but for me, the keynote is the runner-up.
6th furlong, really key. 11.8 for Pacifica Pier, 12.25 from Publish, who stuck in, and then Publish gets out and he's able to come home faster than the winner. 12.77 for Pacific Appear, 12.57 for Publish. But the damage, according to the data, was done from the 2-pole to the 1-pole. A significant difference in how fast they're able to run there, simply because, Martin, Publish has got nowhere to go.
Yeah, he's following the Key of Magic, who's dropping back into his lap, while the winner is quickening. As you said, the times reflect that. The last 2 furlongs, they were really quickening off a slow pace, weren't they? And Publish, for me, I think he'd have definitely won, Angus. He's had to wait and wait, and you just see Colin edge to the outside, and then he really does quicken. He's done well. I mean, he really has done well to finish as close as he has, Publish. Under a hands and heels ride, Colin realised, I mean, look at him here. He's got nowhere to go, while the winner in the white cap has got first run, and they really are quickening, aren't they? And Colin's just sat behind. He can't come over the top of them. He's had to wait. He's had to come back. He's come around. I think the second was very unlucky. I actually would go as far as to say the second horse is better than the winner, Angus.
Yeah, his final furlong was rated as very fast, as against the Race IQ par standards at 12.57. So he's really flown home. Now, these sectionals that we look at Sandown, you're not going to find many 10.9s or 10.8s. You don't get those at Sandown because they're racing uphill, but they can be really well compared to pars at Sandown. That's what we can do with this graph here. Now, look at the early pace in the blue. The first couple of furlongs was pretty steady. Key of Magic taking them along, 14.95, 12.69 early on, then a 13.44. They weren't going mad, but they really picked up after 4 furlongs when they got into the home straight. And you can see how quickly Pacific Appear ran those last 2 furlongs, 24.57. The runner-up, 24.81, but he flew home in that final furlong, Martin. He
did, didn't he? I mean, I think they're both good horses. Pacific Appear, he's more of a miler, definitely 7 furlong miler, isn't he? Pacific Palace Pier, sorry, is the stallion. He's his first crop this year. This is his 7th winner, and they're quite pacey, aren't they? They're definitely pacey, and the Dam was a winner over 7 furlongs. So I think Pacific Appear will improve from this, but for me, the horse to take out has got to be Published by Kingman. The Dam was a Group 2 winner in the US. 2 very good horses, but I think Publish is the one to take out of it. Look at Publish's line there and go to the 5th furlong. Now he's quickening there, 12.93, and he quickens 11.78. But then look what happens. He can't maintain that speed because he's got stopped. The data shows he gets stopped, 12.25, following on from 11.78, and then he got going again in the final furlong. So it really does show where he actually got stopped. He started to gather momentum, and then, whoa, nowhere to go. Well, this is a prime example of where the stats back up what we just seen. Yeah. That 6 furlong, 12.25 seconds, he stopped at a standstill, and that's where he's lost the race in that furlong there, the 6th furlong, where Colin Keane had nowhere to go. So it just backs up what we've seen, and again he's finished well, hasn't he, the last furlong, but it was too little too late. He could take a massive step forward next time, Published, wouldn't you have thought? Absolutely. I mean, he did well to quicken and get. It's hard when he gets stopped. You stop your momentum. It's like stopping at the traffic lights in your car and a car flies on the outside. It's hard to get going again. Very good performance. I look forward to watching where he goes next. He certainly went in my tracker. Definitely, yeah. It should go in yours as well. Racing TV tracker put Published in there. And Pacific Appear perhaps as well for when that horse is stepped up in trip or gets a more strongly run 7 furlongs. That was a bit of a crawl and a sprint. It got messy, particularly for Publish. Martin and I are going to have a look at Nace now. There was the Pat Smollen Memorial for 2-year-olds run on Saturday afternoon. It's the first time this race has been run. It had listed status. That's the race we're going to focus on after we've had a look at the winners on Saturday. They're a big priced Aidan O'Brien winner. You don't see that very often. Neolithic in first-time cheek pieces in a reasonable time of 1:11.21 over 6 furlongs. We have to go down the card to get to that listed 2-year-old race that Daytona won over a mile, the 4:17, and did so in 1:41.3, 4 seconds above the Racing Post standard. So what does that mean as far as the Race IQ time index is concerned? It means that I think the ground wasn't quite as fast as described. It was good to firm in places, probably more good than good to firm. It wasn't too bad with a meeting average of 6. 5.2 for a very green 2-year-old
Daytona in the mile contest that we'll have a look at now. This horse remaining unbeaten now in a couple of starts and is a bright prospect, I think, going forward. But let's analyse the performance in a bit more detail. Daytona from stall 8 beat North Coast from 6, and Genchev came out of stall number 5. Now, that's not a good draw at Nace. If you look at the draw bias stats that Race IQ produce, 0.3 of a length disadvantage in coming out of stall 8 in this size of field. And that's borne out in the race, Martin, because he doesn't get a very good trip.
No, he doesn't, but you can see Wayne Lawton, he's ended up using him to go forward, and then he just slots in behind here, and he ends up racing in 4th. But yeah, from that wide draw, he's kind of raced on the outside most of the way, and then we'll see when you turn in. He's still even wider still, so I think we can upgrade the performance given of where he's ran on the track and how wide he's been. But I think Wayne knew what he had underneath him. He was a winner at Down Royal in June, and he looked good on that occasion. For me, it's as much as what he's done here and the time he's achieved, but it's about what more could come, because he's just doing it. He's not the finished article by any means. No.
Look at the ground he's given away on the bend. He's wide. He'd been quick into stride. He was fastest to 20 miles an hour at 2.43 seconds. But Wayne took him back, tried to get a trip, but in truth, it wasn't the trip he wanted. Forced wide on the bend, giving away a bit of ground. That just shows you why that stall 8's not a particularly good draw over this trip for this size of field. Now he looms up in a race that was quite evenly run. They went through par sectionals, so the 2nd furlong, the 3rd furlong, they steadied round the bend, and then he stays on strongly. He's the only horse to come home in par sectionals, 11.91 for the penultimate and 13.3 for the last. All of the other horses in the race finished slowly or very slowly against par. What this is telling me, Martin, is that he's a stayer, this fella. He's very green, he's all over the place, but I think he's a strong stayer. His finishing speed percentage, bang on 100, 100.46, par's 101.14. He's not quickened. We've seen horses so far in the show that have really quickened up well. He's not quickened. He's just kept going better than his rivals amidst greenness.
Yeah, still a baby. I agree with you. I think he is more of a stayer. He's by Wootton Bassett. The Dam was a winner at 1.5 miles, a listed winner. But I was quite impressed the way he quickened between the 3 and the furlong pole to win his race, and he did it on the bend, the widest of all. I think Wayne was quite surprised when you look back at that. He gave him a slap down the shoulder, and then he jumped back on the bridle, and he got there well, and then he kind of galloped out strong to the line, didn't he, in the style of a horse that is going to improve the further he goes for me. Big, strong horse, but look at him, still a baby, still raw, unbeaten in 2, could be anything.
Yeah, he came hard onto the bridle, didn't he, in the home straight. I thought he might pick up and quicken clear of them, but he just, in the end, he just kept going better than the rest, and he kept galloping all the way to the line. It's the finishing speed percentage telling us that, as do his 2 par sectionals. But he's a big horse, and he's a nice type, but there's lots and lots of stamina in the pedigree. He's going to be a 1.5 mile horse next year.
Yeah, for sure, and doing it in the start. I thought he quickened well for a horse who has got stamina. He quickened well on the turn, going the widest of all, and he made the ground up to get there, and then he looked like he just flattened out to me the last furlong. He didn't stop, but he didn't keep quickening, he just kept staying on that one pace, and but so much potential. He pricked his ears in front as well.
He did, yeah. I think there's more to come. Evidence of the fact that they went fairly hard early on. They certainly were even early on. Is that all of the horses in the race, their fastest furlong was the 2nd furlong. So it wasn't a sort of crawl and sprint job. They went a good even gallop throughout. So Daytona taking the Pat Smullen listed contest. Here are the sectionals as against par, colour-coded, very slow, par, fast, or very fast. You can see what I was on about in those closing 2 furlongs, 11.91 and 13.3 from Daytona. He's the only horse who could hit par, Martin. The rest of them just couldn't live with him. They just couldn't keep going as well as he did for a 25.21 final couple of furlongs. Much better than the rest. Look, 25.92, 26, 26.65. He's murdered them in the last 2 furlongs.
He has, hasn't he? But even that 3rd last furlong, 12.28, that is going round the bend, 4 deep. So he's travelling further than the rest of the field, quickening on the turn. So for me, that was an impressive. For me, that 6th furlong, that was the most impressive for me, because he's quickening around the bend. I know how hard it is, especially a track like Nace, where it is more beneficial to be on the inside. So yeah, big performance. Got an entry in a national stakes over 7 later in the year. Do you think he'll be looking more going a bit further? Or?
I noted that. I think he wants a mile. I mean, that was a mile. I think he wants a mile as a 2-year-old, and he's going to be a 1.5 mile horse in the future. I think he could get into pattern races where over 7 something will have too much zip for him. But there's going to be more to come from him.
I'm sure he'll run.
How good he is doing.
He'll run between now and September. But I suppose if it's soft ground, national stakes over 7, that might
maybe. Yeah.
But he's certainly a horse for the future.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more to come from him. But I think we found that he's a strong stay. I think that's the main thing to take away from the Pat Smullen Memorial won by Daytona. We're going to turn our attentions to Haydock Park. They staged a very good flat card on Saturday afternoon. It was Lancashire Oaks Day, Old Newton Cup as well. Both races will come under the verdict's microscope, but we're going to start by having a look at the Lancashire Oaks. But we'll show you the winners from the meeting first of all. And it was a day that was dominated by Andrew Balding to an extent. He had 4 winners on Saturday, and he had a couple here with Kings Lynn and Plage de Havre. We're also going to focus on, we could have focused on Polestar, who won a very competitive handicap in a really slow time, but it's interesting tactically. But a strange in the Lancashire Oaks and Plage de Havre we will have a look at in this segment of the show. What do the Race IQ Time Index say about both the races that we're going to have a look at? Well, look at this, a Strange 2.7. Very poor score out of 10 for a Strange, and that's because of how the race was run. It was a very tactical contest, and we'll get into that in a moment. But look at that, the Old Newton Cup, very strongly run and producing a decent time, best time on the card. The game is described as good to soft in places, and I think those Time Index scores back that up. So, a Strange, talked of as a Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe horse, had won very impressively on seasonal return here at Haydock Park, and here jumps from the gates and settles in second spot early on behind Love Talk, who took them along. Strange beating Scenic from stall 2. Love Talk in the end was back in third spot. So break speed, not particularly relevant, but it's worth having a look at. 0 to 20 miles an hour, second fastest, 2.28 seconds. And for the run of the race, look no further than the FSP and Par FSP. Par, 1.5 miles here at Haydock, 105.29. Look at this, 113%. And that's because they were very slow early on. You saw that 13.73 early furlong. That was the second furlong in the race, rated as very slow. Quite simply, Martin, the data tells us this was a crawl and sprint.
Yeah, well, it certainly looked that way, didn't it? It was a strange race to watch, Angus, and you mentioned the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. It didn't strike you as a horse that's going to win the Arc after this, but I don't think this filly was at her best, and I think that was because the way the race was run. Tactically, it was a strange race. You got the filly in front, Love Talk. She's rated 85. She's 100 to 1, and she's setting the pace. And the jockey's behind, Daniel Tudhope. He's not willing to chase her. He's thinking she's going to stop, and as a consequence, she's just gone very, very slowly. Maybe found himself in front a bit too soon on a Strange, but it just wasn't set. The race wasn't set up to see her at her best. I think she's overcome adversity to win.
Yeah, they went really slow down the back. If you look at some of the sectionals of the leader, just under 13 seconds. Furlong 4 was 12.69, furlong 5, 12.94, then slowed even more to a 13.36. And Martin, 14.27 for the 7th furlong, then a 13.45 for the 8th furlong. So they were going steady, and then they went even steadier mid-race.
They were just getting slower and slower, weren't they? I'm guessing Danny Tudhope, he knows how good his filly is. He knows that he hasn't got to beat the horse in front of him. He's probably thinking the horse I've got to beat in the race is the eventual second, Scenic. She's behind him, but Danny knows that that filly is a dour stayer, really does stay well. She was a 1.6 mile winner last time. He knows how good his filly is, so he's not concerned it's going to turn into a sprint, because he knows how fast she is, and it did turn into a sprint. Here
we go, yeah, the burn-up started. They went 12.41 and then suddenly an 11.24. That's where they really picked up 3 furlongs from home, and a Strange backed that up. 11.34, 11.24, 11.34, 2 very fast furlongs as against the Race IQ Par, and very fast final furlong as well of 12.15. All in all, flashing home 3 final furlongs of 34.73. It was just the first to go. Scenic in behind, who was just a shade quicker, a 1/10 of a second quicker in the last 3 furlongs than a Strange, but has had to come and fetch a Strange and couldn't quite get there.
No, it was a good run from Scenic. I mean, she's rated £7 inferior to the filly in front, and she wants a bit further. But I don't know. Did she just estrange? Did she handle in that quicker ground? Would she have gone away and beaten Scenic by further if it was a bit of ease in the ground? I think possibly so.
I definitely think she wants more cut. She acts on heavy ground. I think she'd want a little bit more ease in the ground. She wants a better gallop. She wanted a lead for longer, something to take her into the race. You know, she was out in front for a good long while. It just turned into a 3 furlong dash. She's had to really sprint 11:24, 11:34. And then a 12:15. She's had to really fly in those final 3 furlongs. It was just like a piece of work, really. They've gone fairly steady, and then whoosh. We saw where they turned the taps on.
Yeah, she was definitely more impressive when she won a listed race over course and distance last time.
Cruised that race.
Yeah, a bit more cut in the ground. I think it's a feather in a cap. The fact she can overcome a race that wasn't run to suit and battle to win on ground, that's probably a bit too quick for her.
Alpinista won this in 2021 and went on to win the Arc. What are the prospects of this filly doing the same?
Well, you couldn't rule it out, but she's got a lot to prove. We'll know more next time. I think she's going to go for the Yorkshire Oaks, where she'll take on the likes of Kalpana, Minnie Hawk, Whirl, possibly. It'll be a whole different setup that day, depending on what the ground is. So, yeah, we'll watch and see what she does next time. I'm more interested, or as interested, in the runner-up Scenic. Maybe for the Lily Langtree at Goodwood, mile 6, back up at that distance. I thought it was a big run from Scenic.
Yeah, I do think the winner, Strange, wants fairly deep ground. It makes it more of a level playing field, doesn't it? It slows some of the faster horses down. And if she was to get rain at York, then she'd be a player. But on faster ground, she might just be caught out.
On that performance, if she lines up against the fillies I've just mentioned on quick ground at York, I think she'll struggle. But if the rain comes, then it'll be a different story. So I think, really, if you're following this filly, I think we've got to be looking at the weather.
Steadily run race, Martin, that turned into a sprint. Could Danny Tudhope have done anything more than he did?
I don't think so. I mean, he's won. He's got the job done. But all I can say is, as a jockey, you think about the horse in front, 100 to 1 shot. You're not going to go and play your cards to beat that horse. You know the horse behind you ideally wants much further. You've won over a mile and a half. That's a mile 6 winner. You wait until as long as you can, because you know your horse is going to quicken. I think that's what Danny was thinking, and as the sectionals show.
Well, you see where they turn the taps on. It's all very steady, isn't it? Above 13 seconds for a lot of those mid-furlongs, from furlong 4 down to furlong 8 in that first column. And then suddenly a 12:41, they're starting to pick it up, and then whoosh, 11:24, 11:34. It's just turned into a sprint, and probably didn't suit her. Strange, so perhaps we should be really positive about her still managing to win and take that Bet365. Lancashire Oaks, the Yorkshire version, is next up for her. So with the Lancashire Oaks, it was a case of them crawling and sprinting. We're going to have a look at the real antithesis to that by looking at the Old Newton Cup, in which there was a very strong gallop and a really impressive winner as well, in Plage de Havre for, yes, the in-form Andrew Balding. Let's have a look at this race then. Plenty of runners, as always. It's always a good handicap. This all strikes me as being really good form because of the good gallop. They went Enemy, given a chance off a break and dropped out in last spot. Now, the significant point about the positions of these in this race was that the winner came from mid-div. The second was a bit further back than that, and the pace was very strong indeed. Early on, they were flying through the sectionals. Midnight Lion took them along. And he went 13:83, 11:87 the second furlong. Wow, that's quick. That's rated as fast. And it's a very early part of the race to be going that quick. 11:93 and at 12:02, all rated as fast, and they're already pretty well strung out. Break speed for the winner, he was only 10th fastest, 2.6 seconds, but I think that helped PJ McDonald because, Martin, he wanted to get this horse nice and settled. Had to run 11:93 through the third furlong, that's rated as fast. Fourth furlong rated as fast as well. But importantly, Plage de Havre this time settled all right for PJ.
Exactly, that's what's won in the race, Angus. I think the early pace, the early tempo set by the front-running Midnight Lion, it just played into the hands of PJ McDonald on this horse. I think he's a very good horse, but the key to him is if he can just drop his head and settle. You just see there now, even at halfway, he's still latching on a bit, but PJ McDonald, he's comfortable, his hands are down on his neck, he's got him into a really nice rhythm. The early pace has really played to his strengths. I've ridden this race several times, Angus. It really is a difficult race to win. Full field, 1.5 miles. It's a strong handicap, and you have to get things go right. And this was an armchair ride for PJ. I think he's a very good horse, but just look at him here now. As the pace steadies on the turn, he's in his hands again. So if they'd have gone any slower, it would have been a big inconvenience to him.
Yeah, he probably would have started pulling. He has done in the past. He's been pretty keen. He was in his previous start at York. You see there, he's absolutely tanking. Big white face over on the far side. He came home in 37.11 seconds, which meant his finishing speed percentage was under par. Par for a race over this strip at Haydock. You'd expect about 105.29. He was 102.5. Part of those final 3 furlongs made up by that 11.66 second 10th furlong. Only horse to run a par sectional through that 10th furlong, and then he went 12.17 and 13.27. Slow closing splits, slow couple of final furlongs from him, Martin, but the others were slowing down more than him.
They were, weren't they? For me, he won the race between the 3 furlong pole and the furlong pole, and then he's just kind of kept going to stay. He hasn't really quickened the last furlong, and the times tell us that, but it's a wonderful feeling as a jockey when you arrive on the outside like PJ is here, going better than everyone else, and it's just a question of when you pull the trigger. And PJ pulled the trigger around the 2 pole. He's gone clear. I thought he quickened really well to get clear of his field, and then, as I say, I wouldn't say he limped over the line, but he's got the race won. Yeah. And he's won it in that last, or the second last furlong. I think that's where he's won the race, and then he's just kind of staying on. It was a good win. I think the race has really set up nicely for him. Yeah, he did quicken. That's what the data tells us. 12.32 9th furlong, suddenly an 11.66 10th furlong. That took him from 7th place to 1st. So 1 furlong, 1 sub-12 second furlong, surged into the front, and then he just galloped right out and kept on going. And the others just not quick enough in the closing stages. A lot of them paying for racing close to that strong pace, which includes Sir Lowry's Pass, who was quite well supported, and he did best of those that raced close to the pace. He raced in 4th, but get this, Martin, the winner raced in 7th, the second raced in 10th, the third raced in 6th, the 4th raced in 12th, the 5th raced in 14th. So that tells a tale of where those first 5 or so came from. It tells a story. They've gone a really good gallop. Yeah. The question is, Angus, Andrew Baldwin, he was interviewed after the race. He knows this horse is a good horse. He's had faith in him. He ran him in the 2 mile race on Champions Day, pulled way too hard, ended up pulling up. He was that keen. He settled well there today on a fast pace, 1.5 miles. Andrew Baldwin mentioned the Ebor, 1.6 miles. Is he going to stay 1.6 miles? I think he would stay. This was a strongly run race. He's proved his stamina for 1.5 miles in a strongly run race. But the problem is, if they don't go a strong gallop, he's going to be too keen. For example, if you stepped him up to 2 miles and they went steady, he'd have no chance at all. He wants a strongly run race, and he's probably more likely to get it at 1.5 miles than if he goes up in trip. That's the key thing, isn't it? He's good enough to win an Ebor on that, I think. Might be. Sometimes it takes a group horse to win, and I think Trawlerman won it a couple of years ago. But it's whether he'll settle well enough that extra 2 furlongs if they go slow. He's a very good horse, but he does need that kind of setup, doesn't he? He needs them to go quick so he can drop his head and relax. And when he gets those conditions, he's very good. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes next. I think he's very talented, this horse. I really do. It's only his 3rd run on turf. They thought he was an all-weather horse. He seemed to run him on the all-weather quite a lot, and this is just his 3rd go on this surface. More to come, I think. Definitely. Just be interesting whether he does go for the Ebor or he takes in a 1.5 mile race next. It's very valuable, isn't it? £1 million quid up for grabs. If it goes right, you'd throw your hat in the ring, wouldn't you, I think? Yeah, it's just the way he quickened to put the race to bed off a strong pace, and then he was just kind of staying on there without quickening that last furlong. If it had gone another 2 furlongs, he'd have probably won that race, but would he have settled as well, given the tempo? Yeah, it was that 11.66 3rd last furlong at 1.25 mile point that he went from 7th to 1st in one easy move. That won him the race. Let's just sum things up with the Race IQ data. I wanted to show you this. This is what you can find, or part of what you can find on the Racing TV website. There's lots of Race IQ metrics for you there. I've just picked out these 4 for you. 0 to 20 miles an hour, we highlighted that. He was slowly away, 10th fastest to get to 20 miles an hour, so PJ could get him dropped in and get a bit of cover. You can see the top speed that he reached in the race. That's at any singular moment in the race. He was 3rd
third best in, as far as that metric's concerned, at 39.56 miles an hour. Look at his stride length. He's 7.28 metres, 8th longest in the race. And, well, how did he finish the race off? Really well, because he had the highest finishing speed percentage of 102.5. All of that sort of information in the results section on the Racing TV website, and there's lots more of Race IQ data for you there, and in particular the individual sectionals if you want to look at them. So do go and have a look on the website. This is a really good horse, I think. Plage de Havre, possibly the Ebor next, but one caveat: he wants a strong gallop to go out because he's a bit free going. Martin and I are very much looking forward to getting stuck into the Coral-Eclipse that took place at Sandown on Saturday afternoon. Let's have a look at all the winners from a stellar card. Really is a great sponsorship, this, and produced some really good racing. Rumstar taking the first for Johnny Portman. The Classic made all the running. So did Blue Bolt. They're both well handled. One by Sean Levy, one by Colin Keane. There's Delacroix, the winner of the Coral-Eclipse, going understandably there was one other horse that went under, and that was Rumstar, but on the round course, the only horse to go under by 1.08. Mudbeer, Yabba and Flying Frontier completed the 7 winners. But Delacroix is the horse we're going to concentrate on as we look at the Race IQ time index for the meeting. I think we were, as described, good to firm, perhaps firm in places. And there's the 6.2 for Delacroix over a mile and a quarter. It was a good time. It wasn't a flash time. 2 minutes 5.92, 0.43 under the Race IQ par. Meeting average 6.2, so bang on that for the Coral-Eclipse winner. And plenty of talking points as we get into this race. Ombudsman went off favourite. He's quite weak in the markets on the days, particularly just before the off, but he's run a really good race in second spot. Delacroix won from stall 3. Second was Ombudsman from 5. Ruling Court from stall 1. Back in third, he got very sweaty. You can see there in that shot. He really was lathered up by Ruling Court. But he's run a good race. Swerved the Derby, of course, at the 11th hour. Break speed, 0 to 20 miles an hour for Delacroix. Well, 2.41 seconds, third fastest. And all I can say about the early part of this race is that it was messy, and this was a steadily run eclipse through the first 5 furlongs. They did not go a good gallop. Sosi gets to the front, Martin, and then he slows it right down. And look at Delacroix in the third furlong, a 12.61, rated as very slow as against par. They did not go fast. Buick making a move.
It was an eventful race, wasn't it? We pick her up there as William decided to go forward on Ombudsman, and he just puts Ryan Moore into that pocket and behind the leaders, doesn't he? It was such a messy race. I mean, the French horse went out, Saucy went out and made the run in. He probably wants further than this. He wants a mile and a half. So
should have gone harder on him, really.
Yeah, Maxime Guillon, he went to the front. I'm thinking, if you go there, the horse has pricked his ears, then make it a test. But he didn't. He slowed it down, and then the main protagonist, they're kind of at the rear of the field, aren't they, in what was a really tactically run race. And the way it developed, it was entertaining to watch live, Angus. And it
was. And
watching it back, you can just see, you can really upgrade the performance of the winner. Every time you watch this race, I think, how has he won?
Yeah. Traditional thinking has it that he's held up in a slowly run race, because it was slowly run. 4th furlong, they went 12.5 seconds. 5th furlong, about 12.89. It really was a crawl, and then they picked it up once they turned for home, and he's in a terrible spot there. Really bad spot. Gets a bump from Camille Pissarro, and then this horse really gets Ryan out of trouble, doesn't he? And he does so with an electric turn of foot. This wasn't about staying. I had a message on social media saying that I got this race wrong, that Delacroix outstayed Ombudsman. I'm not having that. He's out-sprinted them. He's really quickened from the back of the field with 11.91 and a very fast against par. Remember, up the hill at Sandown, 12.39. That's a wicked turn of foot he's shown, Martin.
Yeah, the thing is, Angus, with horses, they all change as the years go on. But let's pick this up here. Ryan Moore, he's knocking on the door. He wants to come out. He's looking for his stablemate, Camille Pissarro, to move out the way. Christophe Soumillon saying, not a chance. I'm on a French Derby winner here. I've got a good chance to win the Eclipse. He kept him in tight. He's had to switch around the whole field, and he having been stopped in his run. This was a massive performance, a real turn of foot to get him out of trouble. Ryan Moore, he doesn't often make mistakes, and I'm not saying he made a mistake, but he said afterwards, the horse got me out of trouble.
Yeah, he went to go forward early on, and then he let Sosi get on with it, and then he was in trouble from there on in. Ombudsman coming round him, boxing him in, Camille Pissarro boxing him in, but this horse, who's shown lots of speed in his career to date, particularly when he won at Leopardstown, he was electric there with a 10.89 second penultimate furlong. We knew from that he had a real good turn of foot, and he's displayed it here.
I was interested in hearing John Gosden's comments. Obviously trains Ombudsman the second, and he said, Angus, it turned into a real staying race. I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't know whether you do.
I totally disagree. They went steady for 5 furlongs. Maxime Guillaume got to the front on Sosi and he slowed them up. That's why William Buick went forward. He wanted to be more prominently placed. I don't think it was a test of stamina. Look at the finishing speed percentage of the winner. This is where data can really help you. 105.08. So he's 5.08% quicker in the last 3 furlongs than the rest of the race. And a par is 101.32. He's well above par, 4% or so above par. You don't normally see horses finishing that quick at Sandown up the hill over 10 furlongs. So this was about closing speed, this race.
I agree with you. It didn't look like Ombudsman was running out of steam. It didn't look like he was slowing down, and it didn't look like Delacroix was just a strong stayer. He had a real turn of foot to get Ryan out of the pocket and to quicken. I thought it was a really big performance. I mean, you watch these races, we look at the data and you try and analyse it, but for me sometimes you read the comments as well. Ryan Moore said Delacroix could be a miler.
I don't disagree. I think he's got bags of speed. I think the fact that he ran well in the Vertum Futurity last year as a 2-year-old over a mile on softish ground at Doncaster made everyone sort of think of him as being a stayer, a future stayer, but actually, when he gets decent ground, he can show his turn of foot that he's got, and it really is a good turn of foot. And just to back up that this race was a bit of a sprint, it turned into a bit of a dash. We can have a look at the par sectionals and look at Ombudsman. Now, you mentioned Ombudsman, Martin, but look at those 2 final splits for Ombudsman, second line down. He's 11.93 and 12.77. Now, of course, he's slower than Delacroix, who's surging from the back of the field. But they're still rated as fast against par. He's still finishing off quite strongly. His finishing speed percentage, well over 100, 104.22 above par. He wasn't stopping, and Delacroix still ran him down.
Well, that's how it looked. It didn't look like Ombudsman was stopping to me. And the stats back that up. I just think Delacroix, receiving a £10 weight for age, was a better horse on the day.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous to make your mind up about a horse. I thought Delacroix was a Derby horse. It was my pick. I thought he would stay well, but he clearly has got a lot more speed than I thought. And Ryan has said it for a while, and I think the stats show that. He is a really good horse. He's a Group 1 horse, and he can sprint off a slow pace and get out of trouble. Yeah. I'd love to see him back at a mile against Field of Gold.
Field of Gold at a mile. I want a quick question. People that have backed Ombudsman, he was favourite and well fancied, can they criticise William Buick legitimately by saying he went too soon? Is that a proper argument or not?
I don't think it is. And I don't know why there was a lot made. There was a picture of John Gosden talking to William after the race.
Stuff, wasn't it?
But you look at those stats. Ombudsman is quickened to win the race, and he hasn't stopped. So I don't think William has gone too soon. I think it was, if you've had a bet in a race like that was messy, you're always going to say, what if? And believe me, as a jockey, you always question when you're second, could I have done something different? Personally, I don't think William did anything wrong. I just think he's beaten by a very good horse, giving him £10, who clearly, I did anyway. I underrated Delacroix I thought he was a 1.5 mile horse, but he could be good enough or fast enough to go over a mile.
I think we should massively upgrade the performance. I really do. I think he could win a Group 1 at a mile, and against Field of Gold, it'd be very interesting over that trip. I think he really is top-class Delacroix, and he's better than the bare result there. And the speed that he showed up the hill in those closing couple of furlongs was nothing short of sensational to get up and beat Ombudsman. That's it for this week. Martin, I hope you've enjoyed joining me and going through those races.
Yeah, it's great. It's, even after the event, you're still putting the pieces together about horses and what they're going to do. It's an exciting time of year, isn't it? It's the best horses taking each other on the flat through the summer, and we've got the July festival to come as well. And coupling your race riding experience with the data. Yeah, good stuff. We align together more often than not, don't we? We do. We do. Good stuff. Thanks to Martin for joining me here on The Verdict. I'll be back next week. See you then.
The Verdict with World Pool.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.